Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Womansplain. Today's guest is a really special one. We are here with Robyn Berkley. She is the co founder of Live the Process, one of the world's first ever luxury wellness brands, and really a category defining company that she founded way back in 2014. And before that, spent over 15 years in fashion, PR, and other industries. Really excited to dive into her story. I'm going to pass it off to her to give a little intro, and we're excited to learn more about her.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you so much for coming
No worries.
on.
I'm excited to share my story with your community. My name is Robyn Berkley. I am the co-founder of Live the Process, the first luxury activewear brands focusing in the wellness space. But before that, I've been working with brands in all capacities, consulting, PR, marketing, digital, before influencers were even a thing, I would say, for, I don't know, over 15 to 20 years. My dream was always to work within the fashion industry. And I guess I then got interested in healing and wellness and nutrition and all areas of that in my late 20s, which kind of, how can I take all of my skills and kind of create something that was meaningful and purposeful? And kind of married it all together. And so kind of I landed here in a very non-linear way.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. No, we love that. And I think it's honestly so inspiring. And clearly Live the Process also really brings together so many of your passions and experiences. But would love to kind of go back to your life before Live the Process.
Okay. How far?
I
Where do you want
know.
me to begin? Because
I
it's been a
know.
long story.
I know that you started your career in fashion and PR and some other
Yeah.
things. Would love to maybe start there and
Okay.
how you ended up founding Live the Process.
Of course.
I know you were inspired by some health issues, personal
Yeah.
reasons, as well as a trip to Bali. So maybe let's start there.
So I would say when I went to school for communications and advertising. And back then, everything was so closed. Like there was no email kind of, you checked like once a day kind of thing. That's like how ancient. Everything was, you had fax requests working on fashion shows, which was kind of funny. You'd be doing seating. And so I kind of jumped right into the world of fashion right when I moved to New York in 1999. And I went into PR boot camp, and it was like the best training of my life. And I worked at events almost every single day and night. I worked in beauty, I worked in men's, women's, accessories. Um, I don't know, everything from charity to socialites to events. Like it was just kind of, you were tested. You had to know editors' names. You had to know all of these things, or else you'd be fired. It was just a different
It was Devil Wears
experience.
Prada, the
Devil's
first
Wears
one.
Prada. It
Yeah.
was kind of like, you're going to be tested, and if you don't know these, you are no longer useful here. So it was very much, I worked really hard, and I wouldn't take it back. I had such great mentors. And so then from my agency that I was at the time, I started working for another mentor, and he owned this company called J. Lindeberg, and it's Johan Lindbergh. And he had black denim, and he's also just recently launched another brand. And he was the CEO of Diesel at a point. Like he was just like a true visionary. And I worked within it. The brand was about fashion and golf. And so it was
Oh,
very interesting. And
cool.
so it was kind of like, how do you change the world of fashion through golf? And it was just like a very interesting thing that you had to learn. And when I was working there, we were doing our first fashion show in New York, and I met what was going to be my boss when I turned 27 was Kelly Cutrone from People's Revolution.
Wow.
And she's like, one day you're going to come work for me. And I'm like, I don't know. And we were eating at this amazing spot that no longer is here in Soho called Jerry's, which was like very old school Soho spot. And I had left my job and kind of, doing freelance and writing and trying to figure out like, oh my God, what do I want to do with my life? Do I go to law school? It's like those things.
Yeah.
I was 25
Right.
or
Yeah. I
26,
mean,
and
the
it's
whole
like,
world is like an option, right?
and you're
Yeah.
like, what do I do? I don't know if this is completely what I want to do. And I ended up taking a job at a PR company, and I stayed for 3 weeks. I was like, I didn't feel super challenged. I'm not the person who clocks out at 5. Like, it's just like not who I am. And I was like, I need to be like around everything. Like when I was at J. Lindbergh, like I saw brands like Acne launch out of our showroom, like from like
Wow.
nothing. And
That's really cool.
it's just like I met so many people. I was involved in so many events. It was just so much creativity and just having just different access and like learning from people, which was super important to me. And then Kelly calls me on my phone. She's like, I've been looking for your phone number for the last few months. Like, I need to see you. You need to come meet with me. And I was like, oh, wow. And I remember having dinner the night before. I feel like at like Felix, like a long time
Oh
ago.
my God.
Like,
Throwback.
I know, with my friend Lindsay. And I was like, I'm going to go do this meeting. And if I take this job, I know I'm giving up my life more or less, because I know how she works because she's,
Very
works like
intense.
yeah, no, and she just is like a worker. She's not like someone who passes things off. She's like very hands-on and she cares and she's super passionate. And so then I went and did the interview and she was like, I have this fashion director position open. You're going to work on these accounts. And they were amazing. And it was such a good opportunity. And I took the job. And I think this is like probably like 2003, 2004. I don't know, something along those lines. And I ended up staying there for 7 years.
Wow.
And it was the best training of my life because, I mean, the intensity was obviously there. We worked till midnight almost every night for like literally the first 4 years that I was there.
Wow.
Like it was, but it was the heyday of like fashion and it was so fun and everything was like learning. We did the most amazing, like, I don't know, one season we did 16 fashion shows just in New York.
Oh
my
my
gosh.
And then I did Paris and then I did London and then
Wow.
we did LA and then, so I was like literally like working all the time. And then I guess in 2008, like the whole world fell apart. As you know, from finance, it was like,
course.
I'm
Yeah.
sure everything kind of crashed. And she's like, if I put this much energy into myself and People's Revolution, because a lot of young designers were going out of business because they're just,
course. Yeah.
it was just like a horrible economy. She's like, that's where I want to put my energy. And so she wrote a book, if you want to cry, go outside and everything your mom didn't tell you.
Oh my
And it became a
God.
New York Times bestseller. And at the same time, we were doing consulting for like Los Angeles Fashion Week or LA Fashion Week. And the Hills was starting. And so they had asked, we worked with Jennifer Nicholson, which was one of our clients, and Teen Vogue was like, can we, because it was Teen Vogue and the girls were working there, like, can they come shoot backstage? And we ended up
And
shooting that.
Elsie and Whitney
Yes.
and like, yeah.
And so they shot an episode, I guess. And then all of a sudden they had wanted to shoot then in our offices. And so Kelly was like obviously on the Hills a lot and that was like her thing. And then the city happened and then that filmed in our New York office. And then
Wow.
she's like, I want to do our own TV show. And so it's called Kell on Earth. And
Okay.
so we had a TV show, I guess. I came back. I was living in LA at the time.
Oh my
'cause
God.
we
Were you
doing
on
back and
this
forth.
reality show?
Yeah.
Oh my
And-
gosh. I did not
and
know that.
so yeah, so it was kind of like, and I was just working. I wasn't like, oh, I want to, be the center of attention. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to just do my job and she's going to do her thing because, she's captivating and has that kind of personality. And
And great for business too. Hey, it's publicity. So
yes,
great for
no,
business.
but
Yeah.
she just is really good at going viral.
Yeah,
That's a
before
skill for
going viral.
sure.
Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like she was like an influencer before they were influencers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but what actually like really kind of made me think about influencer in that way is I worked on this account with a close friend of mine. It was called Canon Organic Vodka.
Okay.
And we actually, it wasn't about the vodka. We use influencers as kind of in order to gain digital traction.
And this was like way before influencers.
And this is when Leandra just started.
Wow.
Brian Boy just started. We did
Okay.
24 hours with them, you know what I mean, for Fashion Week. We worked with like a lot of people in that capacity. And you're just like, well, how can you do this like content commerce thing? And it was before like it was very commonplace or, there was that whole pay to play model,
Yeah. I mean, social media barely really existed.
It didn't really, and that was like
They were like blogs,
2011
I
at
guess.
that time.
Yeah.
And so, it was happening and things were going. And then, and simultaneously, when I had started at People's Revolution, I guess a year into it, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die if I continue at this pace. Like, I was like, I need to take care of my health. And, I grew up having a lot of stomach issues. And it was that thing where there was a point where I'm like, oh my God, I really don't feel okay. And I feel like, you're just like under pressure,
Mm.
whether it be from like clients or just
Yeah.
the energy of
Running
happening and
around.
having to always like perform
Mm.
and like create magic. And like, cause doing PR, it's like, it's a very specific skill set. And you take on a lot of people's energy and all their stress. And then you're like, oh, I need to do this and, get you whatever it is that you need so you can grow your business. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into it.
For sure.
And so it's like it's your behind the scenes. And so I got really into nutrition and I met this guy randomly. I was like at Equinox. I'm like, I need to get a trainer kind of thing. And this guy was actually working under this other person who lived in the Bronx. And he was kind of the head of nutrition at Harlem Hospital. And he's very witchy, and everything he did was very, more Eastern. And I grew up, my parents were medical consultants.
Oh,
And so I grew
fascinating.
up in a very Western
Yeah.
world. And you were like, hi, go to the doctor. Here's
Yeah,
here's a
of course.
pill. And I was like, and I met him, and it was just like, and I remember it was kind of like I was supposed to go to Art Basel because it was like we were doing
Yeah.
events there. And I was put on this new thing. You're like, well, you need to start off your day with like these aloe shakes. And so I literally brought like a full aloe with me on the plane because I needed to scoop out all the middle of it and find a hotel with a blender that
Oh
we
my
could make like
gosh.
Like the
pineapple
plant,
this.
you like
Yeah,
literally
I
brought the
literally
plant.
brought the plant with me. And I'm like, you have to have this every day. And it was like the first thing to like get rid of inflammation in your body. And so, I just went down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
of everything. And for probably like 6 years, I was on a different plan. And it was like really detoxing like every organ that I have. Okay, we're going to work on the liver. We're going to do this. You're going to do a raw food cleanse. You're going to, because I had so many things, and he basically, when he saw me, he's like, if you don't change, and this is where like the idea of like restriction is not health, it's kind of like in your 20s, you're like, I'm going to like go like super, crazy, not in like a,
No,
just
I mean, you're working till
overextend yourself. You're
midnight.
working.
Yeah, and
You're
you're young and
not,
you can do it, and
and
then
it doesn't affect you.
yeah,
People used to, I mean, we all went out until like
totally.
4 a.m. and went to
100%.
work.
You're also going
Yeah.
after
And
your
you know
your
what I mean?
job
And I was like having
yeah,
dinners
and
because at the
traveling
time,
and
like we had a lot of editor dinners and
totally.
we were entertaining and I had clients and travel. And then that kind of screws with your whole system. And then I was just like, okay, well, if I am really healthy and regimented, then I can do this. Right. Because you're like, I'm going to do this if I could do this.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of not normal because you're like, eventually you're like, okay, I'm actually exhausted and I need to stop this train because I don't know. I can keep doing this. But I was going to wake up and be like, whatever age and be like, well, what happened to my whole life? Because it just like life flies
Does,
by.
yeah.
And so then I was started doing like, I mean, I remember doing my first like because I was doing crystal healing. I was doing like energy work. My dad would be like, what are you doing? Like, how does this? I'm like, Dad, I'm clearing my energy. I'm like, no, and I'm like getting lavender infused massages. Like I was doing like everything. Like I feel like at my first job, this guy is named Dante. He's a big tarot card reader. He was like on like the Real Housewives or something recently, but he was our bookkeeper at
Wow, that's so funny.
our like agency. And so I used to get all my cards read when I was like 21. And so it was just before everything wasn't commercialized like it is now.
Totally.
You're like, everyone's an astrologer.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone is like, doing stuff like that. So it was harder to find. And so when I even started all of my health stuff, I was like so gluten-free. You can't eat this, you can't eat that. You like, because just food made me sick. Like I really was like, I don't know what to do. And so I had to be very strict for a long time to be able to be flexible. And so everything is just like more like masochistic extreme what I did. But like when you feel that horrible, you're like, I don't care. I'm going to do whatever it is. Like I didn't, I loved coffee or I liked drinking like wine or whatever it is. And then I'm like cutting it all out. Like it just doesn't, just at that moment in my life, I was like, when you're having to work that much and do this and your body can't handle it.
Yeah.
And so, and I got me and a bunch of my girlfriends, we got really into yoga as well at the time. And so we'd always go to Yoga Works in Soho when it was open. We go and do classes all together and we're all like had similar like lifestyles and it was something I got really into. And so like I would say in December of 2010, I was still trying to figure out like, okay, what do I want to do? Like, and I didn't leave, my job because it was a good job and
Yeah,
it defined my life. Do you know what
totally.
I mean? When you're like part of a team and doing that. But I'm like, I know that I want to do something in the wellness space. And I really didn't know what that meant at the time. And a friend of mine was leaving her job. We had all gone to like Australia on a trip and for a wedding. And when we were there, she's like, yeah, I'm going to go in this yoga teacher training. And I promise you, it was before people thought it was like cool to be a yoga teacher. It was more like,
Yeah.
oh, you're like super burnt out, so you're going to go become a yoga teacher. Like that was like basically the connotation of like what that was. And I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to like deepen my practice, but like I'd never taken time because I'd worked since I'm 21. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to apply. Amy's going, I'm going to go with her. And I got into the program and it was through Yoga Works that we went and it was in Bali. And it was like, oh, this is like the ticket out of my life. I can like pause for a second. And like one of the things that, you had to do before you went is meditate, which I had never done before. And that was like another thing. It wasn't commonplace. No one spoke about that. So it's like, oh my God, this is like, you did it in yoga for like a few minutes, but I didn't have, any of those kind of things. And so I kind of quit my job and it's 15 years ago, I guess, like this month, which is kind of wild. And I was terrified to quit because it was like this defined, I felt bad leaving, but, because, this was my family.
And it was like your dream job at the time. Do you know what I'm saying?
No,
And like
totally.
you had an incredible experience. So there's also kind of like grief and death of like this like
Oh my
planned life.
God. And you're like, oh my God, like what's on the other side? And I remember flying to Hong Kong and I slept for 15 hours. I was so exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Where you're like, oh my God, I'm like so I didn't even like look at a phone, look at like the news, nothing. I just like fully shut off and like really went deep into this whole experience. And it was super magical. And it was just brought so much knowledge and so much kind of uh, like, uh, like it was just like a mental break where I could like think. My head was spinning. Like I had so much information and I can maintain
Yeah.
all of that, but it was just like it felt like you could be in the present moment versus like, oh my God, I don't even know, like, in that way. And so it was very freeing and so yeah, so that's kind of that's like basically I got back like in June or July of 2011. I'm like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Yeah. And you had already quit at this
You're
point, right?
quitting.
Oh, yeah, I had no
when you went
job.
over.
My
Bali.
parents were like, what are
Yeah.
you doing? Like,
They're like, you had this amazing job, you quit and went to
Yeah.
Bali.
and
we're
also you have
concerned.
you have an apartment in New
Yeah.
York that I kind of signed my lease
Yeah,
right
you're like,
before
how
I
are you
was
gonna pay for
leaving.
it?
And I'm like, that's why I came back. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have come back
Right.
because it was like a co-op and you couldn't rent it out. And it was
Yeah.
kind of like I was paying while I was gone, it was like a whole thing. And at that point when I was like at this like last place in Bali, I was like thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I know I have to do something. I'm going to start this, thing. I don't know. But this idea of process kept coming up.
Okay.
And everything that you do is a process, from even my teacher training. And so the meaning of vinyasa flow yoga is the process of linking breath and movement, which is life. And it was just such a beautiful, kind of thought there that I was like, there's something here. And it was just kind of like this really like, this is whatever I'm going to do. It's like the process, it was kind of like live the process. It's like everyone has their own experience. It's everyone's own personal journey. No one's in a better place. It's all about self-evolution. And this is so early.
No, this is so
Especially
early. And I think
for
we need to
your
remind that
VC
for
people
Yeah,
that
yeah.
were like, that is the worst name I've ever heard.
I mean, but it really shows, right? Like you have been really building this from when you were 20 and then
yeah.
you and I think this is a really good story that we should remind people like we're all burnt out. You're
Yeah.
running in your 20s in a career like PR, but in New York City, you're doing all this at the expense of your health. So you
Yeah.
really need to stop and say, okay, like how is this actually, affecting my life, my
Yeah.
my health? And you can't work if you don't have great health.
No, it's the word. It's like if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
It's like
No, it's true.
circular.
And it's like health is one of those things that like you completely take for granted until you don't have it. Like every single day that you're healthy, you take it completely for
It's a
granted.
gift.
And then you wake up
Mhm.
one day and you're sick and you're like, oh my God. Right? It is. It's one of those rare
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you decide you go to Bali, you come back. You're like, I'm living the
I know. I just am
process.
exactly,
Which is great, which I love. I feel like it's very inspiring. I like the explanation of the name.
okay.
And how did you decide to? You said I think at first it was like a content creation sort of
So
blog thing.
I'll give
How'd you create
you.
that, and
A,
how did it become a brand?
okay. So I'm gonna give you. So I had to fall back into doing PR,
Yeah.
but my first client was SLT, which
So
I'm
cool.
sure
Yeah, I
you
love
guys
SLT.
Love
know.
SLT.
So,
I went through a big phase for sure.
Yeah, I've been doing it for like 15 years.
so I was friends with Amanda Freeman's
Mhm.
sister, and we ended up meeting. And she's like, "I'm launching this Pilates cardio fusion kind of workout. Would you want to do the press?" I'm like, "This is so far out of my realm. I'm like worked in fashion and hotels and beauty and things like that. Would you do this?" And I was like, "Okay, like let me figure this out." And what I realized is like, it was at the time like Soul Cycle was big, Tracy Anderson was, it was boutique fitness workout. And so we rode that wave, and in pitching all these stories, it was like fitness is the new fashion. And
Totally.
that was that. And I was like, and I knew when I had come back, I'm like, I want to create a brand that fuses content and commerce. And so this content was from people who are experts in different areas of, say, wellness. And
Okay.
there were so many like different pillars of that. And then that content was important. And then having a collection. I had no idea how I was going to do it because I had no money. But I had a lot of dreams. And I remember I kind of started working out of my studio apartment. And one of the girls that was an intern at People's Revolution was graduating. I'm like, "Do you need a job?" And I'm like, "I need an assistant." And then, another person kind of came. And then I was like, already, it's like September and I'm going to Paris again. And I'm like, and I had 6 clients. And so I'm doing PR. But I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to do this brand. I just don't know how. So this is kind of the foray, because then I'll preface. In November of 2011, I went to the Dutch with one of my girlfriends. The other one was going to come, but we didn't know. And this person was sitting 2 seats down for me, and he was like, "Do you want me to move over? Because your friend is coming." And we're all sitting at the bar area. I'm like, "Oh my God, that's so nice." And he was lovely, and we were just all kind of chatting, and then it kind of got awkward because we're sitting like across here and we
Yeah.
couldn't talk. And so I invited him to come eat dinner with us. And when we sat down, he sat and eating. He's from New Zealand. He was, super charming. And he's like, "Oh, well, and I just gotten back from my Bali trip. So I was like, meditation, this, I was not in like the New York headspace." And he's like, "Oh," and I told him, I'm like, "I'm going to start this brand. It's called this." And he was like, "Dumbest idea I've ever heard." And
So
he
aggressive. Honestly, like he just met you.
I know, but he,
Yeah.
and he became my business partner.
Which is
And so that's
amazing.
Jared,
Oh
as
That's
my
an
you know.
incredible
God.
So
story.
That is
Shout
a
out to the
good
Dutch.
story.
I
Like,
know. So
Whitney,
Jared, I know. So we just kind of stayed friends, and he was like, kind of called me, and we texted on BlackBerry and everything. And it was
I
kind of
love
funny.
BlackBerry.
And he was like, "I think there's something here." And he's like, "This is really interesting. I really thought about it." And anyway, it was kind of funny. And so, long story short, like within like kind of a few months, like, he comes from a big fashion family in New Zealand. And so he understands that, but he also comes from, he worked at a lot of banks, but in proprietary trading.
Okay.
And so he used to build AI machines for trading. So he's like
Wow.
a big tech. He knows everything about kind of computers and digital and everything, and then production. It's just like everything that we're total opposites.
So you're like really complimentary.
And we're very complementary. And we also have, our aesthetics kind of align in that way. And, and so it's like all of the things that you're looking for. It's like you never want to work with someone who's the exact same as
Yeah.
you. Like, how does that even make sense? You need to have someone who has opposite
Totally.
skill sets. So that's how that
Oh
happened.
my
Wow,
God.
what
So
an
That's
it was
incredible
kind of like one of
story.
those serendipitous moments. And that's why I say
Yeah.
everything happens. Everything about Live the Process is timing. And it's kind of like, okay, you have an idea. Okay, this person, I knew I didn't want to do this by myself. It's too big of an idea.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I want to do a concept store. I want to do all this. And then I'm like, I don't know anything about retail. Like, let me take a step back. Let's do content commerce. And then, and so anyway, long story short, we just, we had decided, and he built the website and created it from like WordPress with Shopify in the back.
Wow. That was like honestly early days of that stuff. Like I think we just
Yes.
just don't remember. Like it used to be a lot harder to do everything.
Yeah.
And
Oh my God. I mean, like, I feel like even having AI, even like a year and a
yeah.
half, 2 years has
No,
changed the game.
No,
literally.
Like,
literally.
with
Well, like
everything you can
2013, it was
do.
like very hard to build a website.
Yeah.
It
You
was
needed to be
hard.
I know.
Like
I mean,
WordPress was different, like it was
Yeah.
it
difficult.
was a lot
Yeah.
of work.
It was a lot of
And
work.
so, I was kind of doing all of my consulting still. And I had was working with all these amazing brands that I was like launching and doing, and a lot of amazing ones. And then this was like this little passion project that was here. And so we decided, so I curated all the content, the contributors. And, I was like, I had asked a friend of mine if she'd be like our editorial director. And that's kind of how it started. So every month. And then, everything evolved, different iterations over the years. And, but then we launched the collection. And the idea behind the brand from a collection standpoint comes from this idea of like the bodysuit. And that's where we started. And I felt, even when I was packing for my trip to go on my yoga training, there was nothing I wanted to wear. Everything felt so intense or very sporty. Like I didn't want to wear like Nike, just do it to do, yoga. It's very like, beautiful spiritual practice. I feel like Beyond Yoga had just started. And there was like a lot of like these other like smaller brands, but nothing that felt modern and fashion and kind of married those worlds where I'm like, oh, if I was going to go out after this, can I wear this? Or how do I just like throw on jeans over something? And so kind of also what the fabric choices and all of those kind of
Yeah.
things. And so there are a lot of things to consider. And so even, doing the fabric took like 2 years and kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah, and tell us
figuring that out.
I know that one, Live the Process is very unique in what it looks like. For
Yeah.
like our listeners who don't know, it's like extremely feminine. Kind of like I know your signature is like you have like kind of leggings with like cutouts almost, and they're cotton.
Yep.
And like a matching top. You have lots of really beautiful pieces, and they're also cotton specifically. They're
We
like
launched cotton 3
okay.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay,
love
but or
cotton.
what is the original? It's not
Supplex.
microplastic. It's
No,
Suplex.
so it's Supplex. So basically, when we were before this idea of, oh, I need to be in a sustainable brand,
Yeah.
we just wanted to have the best quality fabric that was out there.
Okay.
We wanted something that was not going to stretch out, that was going to, retain color, that, was
Supportive.
like sculpted, held the body in. And in finding that and kind of creating it, we actually kind of hit the lottery of high quality synthetic fabrics. And it's kind of like the most unique because it's
feels
the least amount of micro shedding out there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't perfect, and there was nothing out there that was. And so it was kind of the least amount of micro shedding out there. And so that was, at the time, which is, 15
A
years
long time
ago.
ago.
It's a long time ago. And so I would say the idea of microplastics and all of those kinds of things, really, we started kind of seeing a lot like 5 years ago.
Totally.
It's really
Really new.
escalated, I don't know, this year.
Yeah.
And our thing was like, how do we create something? We have one amazing fabric. And guess what? Everyone I know has had their pieces for 10 years. And that is such a true testament. I mean, we make everything in LA. The fabric was made in LA. The carbon footprint was so small. Everything is ethically produced. We have our own factory in California. I know the people who sew our, items. Like it's like true family, and we're very close. It's part of the DNA of the brand, and so, and it was really important to know all of those things.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk more about, obviously it was the best option at the time for athleisure in terms of sustainability and just not using, enough
But no one was talking
microplastics.
about it. Like if you compared our fabric, first of
Yeah.
all, it costs triple the amount.
Right.
I'm
Just
sure.
so you have an idea.
Especially
Totally.
manufacturing here. I mean,
And
I
then
can
that's
imagine.
also
Yeah.
very, as you know, extremely expensive. But it was the care for the customer,
Yeah.
for the experience. when you get one of our pieces, there is so much love that goes into the creating of it. It's not like a disposable item. Like
Mhm.
you'll keep it. People are like, I have your prints from like the first season because we had started out in prints, with solids,
Yep.
but it was just meant to like everything we do is with like intention and care and like the emotional love for everything. It's like a labor of love.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and that's what keeps us, I feel like, a little bit different.
Yeah, and you're also riding on the trend of like with the raw cotton that you just launched, earlier this year is like that is also doesn't have microplastics. That's something that is really important. Your body is the biggest organ.
Yes, of course.
All your
And
competitors have, plastic, so that's really a
it's
good
oil. Yeah.
differentiator. Yeah.
Oil. But I feel like we want to, anything that so we have one fabric, right? So anything that we were going to introduce, first of all, had to be non-toxic. That was so important and had to be the best we could potentially do for us to introduce it. Because it's going to take away from, certain market share but like we were listening and conscious and we're like, how do we create, this fabric? And so it took 3 years to kind of get to the point where we're like, wow, we're so excited about this. And you can move in it. It doesn't feel the same level of kind of sculptedness. It almost feels like comfort. It like
Yeah.
hangs well and feels well, and the feeling to the body is incredible. And it's such a testimonial to the hard work that kind of got put in, because it's probably like the best, and again, the best quality fabric that you can have, that is, this certified organic cotton. And then just like finding the factory and the mill that
Yeah.
Yeah, tell
also
us
has
about that
those
in that process.
certifications. I mean, it's just you're a lot of research,
Yeah.
but our partner has all of the necessary certifications that kind of make all this possible. And so it's almost like launching a new brand.
Right. And you've been around for such a long time when athleisure really wasn't a trend. In 2010, people weren't wearing yoga
No.
pants to, go out to dinner. And now it really is a trend. So you were the first, pioneer. What was a moment when you were like, oh, wow, like this is really happening. And I am the first person to really bring it to life.
Oh my God. I would say when we had billboards, when we launched with Netta Sporte,
Yeah.
Netta Porte, we had billboards, and our corset bodysuit, which at the time was so novel, sold out like immediately.
Wow.
And we're like, oh, we're on to something
doing
here,
something.
and then all of a sudden, we grew. We were like a big wholesale kind of model. So we were in like Lane Crawford, Selfridges, Bon Marché, Essence. I mean, every top global store like that you can, imagine. And
Barneys, Net-a-Porter.
the whole thing, Mytheresa at the time, Matches. Um, and we're like kind of fashion activewear. That's what, but what was really important is kind of this idea of like collaborations, but things that actually make sense for the brand. And so, doing things that were with, brands and people that we really admire was kind of such a dream. And it just like, you're like, oh, wait, I'm going in the right direction. It's like nothing's easy and everything's trial and error, and everything, wasn't like, oh my God, we did this. And it was a walk in the park.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to do this. And in the way that we did it. That idea of also owning like ballerina off duty, like you can tell me that like we've been doing our first piece was a leotard.
What?
Yeah. Because, I grew up doing dance and gymnastics, and I was like, there's nothing out there that you're like, I'm going to wear my leotard and I'm going to layer things over the top.
Yeah.
Really?
And then, we just started being like, okay, well, we're layering. We're like, everything has to kind of, do that together. So
I know. And I mean, obviously, you guys truly did define like a category, and you came in so early and created Live the Process, which was so unique, especially in comparison to a lot of other competitors that you think of on top of your head in terms of wellness. But how has the brand, continued to really evolve as a million, kind of new entrants have come in the past 10 to 12 years, while also still like maintaining your own identity? How have you really
I would
evolved?
say we've always stayed true to what it is that we do. We haven't changed for anyone. And I think it didn't matter what other people were doing. Like we're still very dance inspired. We're still feminine. We are non-branded, which is probably the hardest thing to do. And it's why people buy us at the same time. It's like the flip side, in fashion, anything that's like non-branded, it's very silent. It's like that, it's
Quiet
hard
luxury.
It's a particular
it's
customer.
quiet, but it's for a
Yeah.
particular kind of customer
Customer.
that has a lot of confidence, that does not need to be like, I'm wearing somebody's brand across my chest. But live the process also is like a really good mantra, right?
That's
And so it's like, how do you actually kind of showcase it? It's a personal journey. But I think since we are very much a design-led brand, people are like, oh, that's live the process. Like they will know. So
Interesting.
that like our Orion set is our best-selling set. It could be the hardest set to wear, weirdly, but it really defines the brand. Our
Yeah.
corset series, everyone knows our most basic bra, and I just think that there's like certain things, like we kind of, have done like a lot of iterations of like layering pieces and knitwear and, how do we make our shoots feel like interesting and luxury? And what is that girl wearing and how is she looking? And I feel like we've had like a lot of success with, celebrities and social and just people just being supportive of us. And I feel like you just evolve and you find your way. And there was no clear path. And I think that, and we also didn't raise money
Ever?
ever.
Wow. So you've been bootstrapped this whole time.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's
amazing.
probably, that's like, we've never taken money because we were so specific, I feel like, on direction and how we wanted to do this. And I think everything we were doing was so new that people didn't know what was going on until. And so, look, and our plan is no plan because you need to be able to change. I mean, the way the world is like you can't even think tomorrow.
Yeah.
You have to be so agile within the market, I think, and kind of be able to grow and evolve and change. And so we have continued to do that a lot.
And I mean, obviously, you originally had like this retail strategy, which was really successful then. I think now I'm assuming, I think you have more of an e-commerce strategy. How did like sort of the retail strategy evolve over time as sort of retail became less popular? And along as your PR strategy too, it seems like originally it was pretty traditional and you had like billboards and all these things, and now you're very hot on social. So how did you kind of incorporate that as well?
I would say, we, so my communications agency that I had, I ended up going full time with Live the Process in April of 2020, which was the
Oh my
pandemic.
gosh. Wait, you're running both
Well, you were running both for that
for
long.
like 10 years?
Yeah. And so this, as I
Wow.
said, this was kind of, so it was kind of like this thing. And so what happened was if I don't go full time now, the brand's like never going to be able to evolve and grow in the way that it should. And so Jared and I were like, okay, I feel like it's time. The world's could end now because it was COVID.
Really?
And we had our best-selling month, April 2020.
Wow.
And
Everyone was working out.
Everyone was
And
wearing
They were all
athleisure.
at
Everyone was
home.
wearing athleisure.
Everyone had to
everyone,
be cute
and
at home.
our factory was open and we had our studio space. And we had a big choice because the Thursday before the world shut down, we did our kind of one of our first events on Instagram, IGTV, whatever at the time. And we were so it and then it became, do we hold on to our space?
Yeah.
And we did. And because we had half of our inventory there.
Wow.
So Jared's in the city shipping, because we're like able to do all that when no one could leave their homes. And so we're like, we are open for business.
Yeah.
And so we were able to do all that because our factory was making masks and we were making
Wow.
them too. And so we had done this like headband gifting to all the nurses in the US for hospitals because it was kind of this thing where like their faces were getting kind of burned from, I don't know, all the things that were happening.
KN95.
Oh my God. Yeah. So we had kind of done that. And, we're always a very charitable based brand. And we were always like looking to kind of figure out how to support. And we turned our studio in probably in December 2021 into an actual real studio space.
Wow.
And we curated classes for 5 years. And it was, again, organic. It was, we had done a partnership with friends of mine who had a yoga studio. And then all these other women were like, oh my God, I want to teach. And then I was like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I have 40 instructors. I'm doing 1 to 2 classes every day and everyone's amazing. And I was just like, this is a whole other job, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and we did a pop-up in Soho, which kind of, again, random, like it just happened. You know, it was a friend of Jared's. It was an amazing space, you know, it was right near Balthazar. And so we had like the studio and then we had a store. And it was just, again, like, you know, it was a lot, but it was amazing. Such good experience and kind of knowledge. And then we were like, we're really focusing on DTC and like going all in here because, you know, that was kind of our choice. And it's like kind of, you know, being really focused because doing wholesale, you know, we wanted to change our business kind of strategy just to focus on
more
DTC.
control in e-commerce, more control of
Yeah.
identity, its placement, and obviously it's where the consumers are. So especially since you did
Exactly.
so well, probably with e-commerce and COVID, so it's amazing.
And so, yeah, we've been able to maintain and really grow and grow with the direction of, you know, where it's all going. So it's been like a learning, it's been a process.
And
You've done so many like
even-
collaborations too. Like,
Yes.
tell us about some of your favorite ones. I know you had one with the Whitney, you know, Moon Juice.
So I would say my most favorite was our first one with the David Lynch Foundation. It was such an honor to kind of work with them. When I come back from my trip in Bali, a friend of mine introduced me to someone who worked for the foundation. Another friend of mine was I feel like she just kind of did her TM certification, I guess, to be able to do TM. And I kind of did mine after. And then we kind of volunteered. And it was the idea that, you know, at the time, meditation was where yoga was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And nobody thought about it in that way. And it was this idea of, you know, how do we educate people? How do we, you know, TM was such a useful tool. And I was like, I'm going to do my first collaboration with the foundation. And so we did.
Yeah. I mean, missions really aligned with.
No,
you know.
completely. You know, and then our next one I did with Amanda from Moon Juice. And I feel like Jared was probably there because he was living in Venice at the time. I think he might have gone there every single day of his life. And it was very, very into it. And I had met Amanda through friends of mine in LA, and she was really into kind of astro prints. And so we did that. And we worked with them. And then I would say our latest collaboration, which we had done, was with the Whitney Museum, which was a dream. A close friend of mine who's also a really big Live the Process supporter, she wears it all the time, was, you know, handling the communications for the Whitney. And she's like, do you want to collaborate? The Alvin Ailey is doing their retrospective at the Whitney. And I was like, and it's September, but we need to have pieces done by December. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But yes, we'll figure it out. And it was so amazing because it's like a dream. I mean, it's like you have like the Whitney, you have Alvin Ailey, and then you're like, I get to kind of create pieces, and we sold them like online and at the Whitney store, and we got to create a video and shoot there before the Whitney opened. And, you know, it was so cool. I was saying it's like she was danced through the entire Whitney Museum, and then we shot on the rooftop. And that was pretty, you know, powerful. We're, you know, pretty particular with who we kind of collaborate with. It has to like really resonate for the brand. We're not doing collaborations just to do them because we want to get more followers. And you know what I mean? Everything that we do has so much meaning. And we are working on another one, which I'm really excited about
please
too.
Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, it's a beauty brand, which that I'm a huge fan of. And they reached out to me personally directly on Instagram, which is so cool. And they're called Merit, which is obviously huge for us. And they most recently worked with the famous ballerina, Misty Copeland. And we just, you know, kind of shot with her. And so she's going to kind of be wearing our pieces. And then which already came out in our Venus bodysuit, which was really cool. And it's literally dancer off duty vibes. So we're doing a top, a legging, and like a knitwear wrap top and headbands.
Oh my gosh, full
And
circle.
it's very much like, you know, kind of like this idea of like post-gym beauty, like kind of how do you have, you know, kind of clean face and feel really kind of good in your skin and natural, being able to do it. So we've been working on it for a while, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, that is so exciting. We're so excited for Live the Process and like how you guys have obviously survived for so long and continued to really evolve. It's so special. This has been an amazing episode. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
being
of
on,
course.
Robyn. We have a lot of young listeners and we always end on this question. What advice would you give a young person who is looking to start their own company?
I would say be curious, resilient, and truly, truly, truly passionate with whatever you put your heart and soul into.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows. I feel like your entire life has been living the process, and you're continuing to do that. And this has been so inspirational. Where can we find Live the Process?
You can find Live the Process online at www.livetheprocess.com or on Instagram at Live the Process.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Robyn. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. You can find us at Womansplain Pod on all socials and email us at hello@womansplainpod.com. And everyone, live the process. Thank you
Live the
so much.
Process.
Thank you so much for listening. This is Sola.
And this is Brooke.
And do you want more of Womansplain?
Follow Womansplain Pod on all socials.
And do you want to join our membership?
Go to womansplainpod.com for more information to become a founding member.
Thank you.